Truth is, there are times when it's okay to shoot somebody in the back.
A masked man who police believe was in his 20s, dressed
Police are
in all
searching for a
black,
man who they say
pointing a
opened
gun
fire,
at the man.
killing a robbery suspect who was holding custody.
The customer took out his gun and shot Washington 9 times. Multiple bullets to the back, including a bullet to the head.
Folks, we're talking about that shooting in Houston, Texas, in the Taqueria. People are hailing this guy as a hero. You've probably heard about what happened. Folks are in the restaurant eating. Guy comes in, masked bandit. I mean, it's just a typical, movie-style robbery. Guy with a mask comes in, waving a gun, demanding money. And people are giving him the money, and you can watch this video. We're not going to show the graphic parts of the video, but I want to run through this video and talk about some really good elements, and then there's some things that are quite not so good at the end of it. And you see the people cooperating. This guy's waving a gun around, or what they think is a gun. We'll get to that in a minute. Demanding money. People are there giving him money. Now you see the guy in the booth reach out, give the money, and throw it on the ground. Okay, that's always a good idea, especially if you think you're going to take action against this robber or attempted robber in the near future. Make them do something, get their attention off of you. He drops the money on the ground. Other people are throwing the money around, making sure this guy has to do something else to pick it up. And then as the robber starts to walk out, he's still got the gun out. Now, I've told you many times before, if a bad guy's running away, let him run away. But in this case, I don't know. Was he running away? The gun is still out. There is still an imminent deadly threat of death or great bodily harm because you reasonably believe this guy has a gun. So he could just turn and shoot you with it very quickly. But as he walks past, the good guy with the gun, and I'm saying that right now, I'll put some air quotes on that, the good guy with a gun, gets up and shoots him. Shoots him several times, and the guy goes down. And we did a video like this with Coleon Noir not too long ago, where we put Coleon in this kind of exact situation where the bad guy was trying to get away and get away with the money, get away with the kidnapped woman. And Coleon ended up having to shoot this guy in the back. And truth is, there are times when it's okay to shoot somebody in the back. I know we've all watched those old Western movies and back shooting scallywags and stuff like that. Nope, there are times when it's okay to shoot someone in the back. You just have to make sure you can articulate exactly why you did that. And there was still a reasonable belief that an imminent threat was present. This imminent threat of death or great bodily harm was present. So, shooting in the back, if people are talking about that, you know what? That's something we can overcome in a self-defense incident. You sometimes have the right to do that, and we talk about that a lot here at the USCCA. So, but the early reports, I believe I read something on January 7th, said that once the bad guy was down, the good guy, the defender, walked over to him and shot him once in the head while he was down. Now, we're not showing any of this on the video, on the surveillance video of what happened in there. It was all captured on the video, but we're certainly not going to show that. This is where it gets really important for you to stop using force when the threat stops. Now, shooting someone in the head when they're down, there might be, and again, we need the totality of the circumstances, and we don't have all of that information from this video and from the few reports we're getting from the media. So we need that totality of circumstances, all of that information through a good, thorough investigation to figure out why that guy did what he did, allegedly. Now, these are reports. If this proves to be true, it could be that our hero went from self-defense to committing murder. And maybe we should talk a little bit about self-defense. You want to know a secret weapon the anti-gunners don't want you to know about? It's a USCCA membership. And more than 700,000 people have already joined the U.S. Concealed Carry Association. And when you join right now, you get some free bonuses. You want to learn more about the USCCA? Just click the link. And Texas self-defense law is oftentimes a little bit different than some in the rest of the country. I believe it's statute 9.31 or something like that, that says you can use force to stop a robbery. There's a long list of things there that you can use force to stop, and you can use force to stop a robbery. So those first few shots are probably legal. I don't know about the last few shots, and certainly if it is true that this defender put a round in the back of the guy's head while he was laying down on the ground, there's going to be a really serious investigation into that, as there should be. Because again, we don't want to be the people who are using force just for the sake of using force. It is our last resort. It is the thing we want to do last, because it opens us up to an entire world of problems. Now, everyone is talking about what happened in this taqueria. I can't remember. I want to say taco restaurant. Maybe I'll just go ahead and do that. Everyone wants to talk about what happened in this restaurant as a perfect example of self-defense and a perfect example of the need for concealed carry. And it is an example, but it is not a perfect example. And this guy did a lot of things right. He complied with the demands of the robber to make sure that people were safe. He didn't start a face-to-face shootout trying to draw his gun against a drawn gun. That was good. He dropped his money on the ground to make the robber do something else to kind of divide his attention from what's going on, just in case he wanted to start his counterattack at that point. That was really good. He used a position of tactical advantage, and to the best of my knowledge, followed the law pretty closely, was able to use force legally to stop this robbery and this imminent deadly threat of a person with a gun. And even to that point, shooting someone in the back can be legal. We need more information about that, and we need a very serious and thorough investigation to make sure that what he did was legal. But then in my eyes, if it is true that he shot this guy in the head as he lay there bleeding out, that could cause some serious legal issues for him. Now, we don't know what was going on when the guy was laying on the ground. Maybe he was reaching for his gun and trying to get a hold of that gun and become an imminent deadly threat again. Because even if you got bullets in you and bullet holes in you and you reach for a gun, you become an imminent deadly threat and you can be shot again. So that may be what's happened here. We don't know all the details about that, but what we do need to know is what happened, and did he do everything legally when we're talking about using deadly force, and especially using deadly force in what is really a complicated situation here. It becomes a very complicated situation because of the shooting in the back. And like I said, we showed you segments of that video with Collier Noir. People were asking how come he shot him so many times. Also in that video we did with Collier Noir, in the first scenario, because sometimes you shoot a lot and it takes a while, takes a fraction of a second for you to tell yourself to stop shooting when you start shooting quickly. In that video with Collier, he shot 8 times and he said he only shot 3, but we watched it on video that he shot 8 times. So that's just part of the fog of what happens when you're in a very high stress, deadly incident. Now, following on, there's still more to this story. Following the incident, after the shooting was over, the good guy took the money from the bad guy and handed it out to the patrons of the store, said, go ahead, take your money back. You know what? I would rather be calling 911 than trying to do something like that. And then, to add even more confusion to the entire situation, we come to find out that the gun the robber was using wasn't even a real gun. It was a toy gun. And on the video, you can see the guy who defended everyone in that store throw this toy gun against the wall. So this whole thing is messed up. First of all, man, robbers should not be using toy guns. There are just way too many people with concealed carry permits and living in constitutional carry states and with concealed firearms on them to be walking around with a toy gun pointing it at someone. Because if you point something that looks like a real gun at me, I'm going to use my real gun to stop you from pointing what I think is a real gun at me. And I'm going to stop you by shooting at you, shooting you. putting holes in you to stop the threat. But this entire operation, this entire situation from start to finish is something that it just speaks to the need to understand all the laws, all the tactics, and to pay attention to what you're doing and have self-control. Yes, it's a volatile, high-stress situation, and things are already out of hand when you got to draw your gun and start shooting at someone. I get that. But you can only use deadly force until the threat is stopped. Now, that might be different in Texas. This guy might be totally in the clear for his actions that he took in Texas, but he's still going to have to answer for that. And as of this recording, I don't know if they found this guy yet, the defender in the taco store. I don't know if they got hold of him. He left the scene, and then police arrived and put out some pictures and said they were looking for him. But again, we're starting at the very beginning, is know your laws. Know what is legal for you to do in your state. Wherever you are standing with your firearm, you need to know those laws, and you need to know how you are allowed legally to respond to an imminent deadly threat. Then you need to know the tactics that you will employ to stop this imminent deadly threat. How can you get your gun into action? Do you have a good holster that allows for secure carry but quick use of that firearm? Can you put your rounds on target? Now, you see, this is one of those typical gunfight situations, really close range and really high speed. I'm telling you, it is not all that difficult to put your rounds on target at that range, but then you got to make sure you're paying attention to what you're doing. And when the threat stops, stop using force, because if you don't, you're going to have to answer for that. You're going to have to understand, and the police are going to come and find you and ask you questions about why you did what you did. And if you acted outside the law, you can move from hero defender to, well, I guess we'll call it suspect. I was going to say criminal, but from hero defender to suspect very, very quickly. What's going to happen during the investigation of this shooting is that the prosecutor is going to be looking over those videotapes, that video evidence, and try to make a determination as to when the threat stopped. And did this defender need to use that level of force, that final shot, to stop an imminent deadly threat? Again, we don't have all the information because we can't see what the bad guy was doing when he was down there on the ground. What we do see in the video, and again, we're not going to show you the graphic parts of the video. What we do see in the video is this guy shooting a guy in the head while he's on the ground. The reason for that, we don't know yet. There might be a legally justifiable reason, but the prosecutor is going to work with the medical examiner and is going to try to determine which of the shots were deadly, were fatal, were the ones that stopped the threat, and was the threat still imminent when the last shot or the last two shots or the last three shots were finally fired. All of this stuff goes into the investigation surrounding a shooting. They're going to leave, as they say, no stone unturned. They're going to look at this from every single angle. Not only the witness statements, but the video and everything else and all of the forensic evidence. It's all going to be checked out to determine if it was justifiable for this guy to fire those last couple shots. Want to know the 3 biggest mistakes when carrying a handgun? Then click on the video next to me to reveal all 3 mistakes. Mistake number 2 may shock you. Everybody has their own cardinal rules for what they're going to do when they're carrying a gun, but right now I'm going to give you 3 things that you must never do